Welcome to Creative Courage Chats, a search for a new understanding of creativity and problem solving. I'm Alex Raffi. I think that was kind of cool. So, hi everybody. We're doing another Creative Courage Chat today. We're here today with somebody. Where did we meet again?
I think A.I.G.E. portfolio review.
Yeah, it was something like that. It was a thing, and I just got invited to hang out at it, and for whatever reason, then we became Facebook friends. But I'm here with Dan Mcelhattan, right? And
yep, exactly.
And we're in the same industry where we talk about design. You know, he's designed a lot of logos and a lot of brands, and he's a businessman, and he understands. He's an educator. I'm not going to say teacher. He's an educator. I've dabbled in a bit of that as well. But I'm going to let you go ahead and tell everybody a little bit about yourself. Yeah, that's what I usually do.
Yeah, no problem. So first of all, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate this. This is an awesome forum to have people kind of communicate with one another and find out about each other. Been a graphic designer for over 30 years. Been also a professor at CSN for the last 11. Consider myself pretty much a graphic designer by trade. So like you said before, I do a lot of stuff where I'm naming companies, helping them with their logos, helping them with their packaging, do a lot of stuff here from not only Vegas, but also outside of the United States as well. I've done clients in Australia, Norway, and all that stuff. What people know me for, or how they know me, is I'm also one of the founding members of A.I.G.E. Las Vegas. Formed that back in 1996. And because we were growing A.I.G.E. at such an early stage, we were just growing membership like crazy. National took a look at us and said, "Hey, we're going to have our national convention here in Vegas." And within a year, they had the national convention here as the Venetian was opening, which was the highest attended event of A.I.G.E.'s history, which was amazing. And it brought in over about $4.5 million to the economy, which was just amazing. And Penn and Teller opened it up, had a huge Cirque du Soleil thing, and I was in heaven because all the greatest designers of the design world came here. We got to go hang out with them and stuff, especially like the typographer people like from House Industries, which created like Jimmy Kimball's logo and all that. So it was just a blast. It was a lot of fun. Other than that, but most people know me for my work that I've done for Westwood Studios. I did packaging for Blade Runner and for Dune, which if you haven't checked out the new trailer for Blade Runner, or Dune, it's amazing.
Oh, I love that.
It's coming out. I'm a science geek, if you will. I'm wearing my Disneyland shirt here. This is the pattern from the Haunted Mansion. I'm a huge, and this is not we connected because on Facebook you had these amazing Jack Skellington motion things. I'm a huge Tim Burton fan. I'm a huge Jack Skellington Nightmare Before Christmas stuff. I will only go to Disneyland for the Haunted Mansion being switched over into the Nightmare Before, because that's my church and that's where I pray. It's just awesome.
Side note, I proposed to my wife on Halloween.
So nice.
And I found out that my wife was pregnant on Halloween. Halloween's a big holiday. It's funny because she gave me a card, and in the card at the cover it says, "You want to hear something really scary?" I'm pregnant.
Oh, cool! Oh, so cool. So she pulled the Elizabeth shoe on you. I call that Elizabeth shoe because from the movie Cocktails, like I bet it can still spook you. And she tells Tom Cruise, and she's pregnant. That's awesome. That is awesome.
So every time we go to this same place, Crystal Pier Hotel, that's out there in San Diego, and it's this pier. It's got little cottages, and we go for our anniversary every single year. We stay at the same place, same cottage, and we always go to Disneyland, and it's always it's on October. It's during October.
Perfect.
12th. And so we always go to Disneyland when it's Halloween. And
it's such a beautiful time.
My daughter has no idea what it looks like when it's not Halloween.
That's so. I know. When I took my daughter too. I mean, I've been happily married for over now 17 years. My wife will crush me on that one. We have 5 kids. We have 8 grandchildren. And when I took my biological child Ella to the Haunted Mansion for the first time, it was such a memory. It was such a wonderful thing. Ever since, I've been going to Disneyland for so many years, and I've always walked down Main Street, and I've always wanted to get one of those guys where they hand carve or cut out their silhouette. I've always seen it, but I always wanted to do it. So I finally got to do one with my daughter, and I'm like, this is the best, it's to like check off the bucket list.
That's
so it's
cool
just
how they do that. They just kind of.
It's amazing. It's a lost art, but it's a beautiful thing. And for those who are out there, when you're watching this video and stuff like that, look up Ollie Moss. Ollie Moss is known for some incredible work that he's done for like Star Wars. He did these 2 Batman's facing each other, make a Wolverine type of thing. But he had this huge art show in which everything was cut out in the silhouette form. And he would have everything from the famous popular movies, from Die Hard, all the way to Mickey Mouse to Pinocchio, and the nose is breaking out one frame into another. And I'll give you the link so you can share it with people, but
That'd be
please
great.
check
Yeah,
it out.
totally.
It's absolutely amazing. It's just unbelievable. And I share that with a lot of my designer friends because it's just a simple concept, but it's so well executed, and
Yeah.
especially in a minimalist approach. But anyways, not, basically I'm a fanatic when it comes to creative ideas. I
Yeah.
love ideation. I love creative people. I love hanging around them. I love talking with them. I love sharing ideas back and forth because it just inspired me. I will be honest. Back when I was in college, I was studying architecture, as I called it, because it was definitely torturous. And a good friend of mine, Gary Benzel, was a graphic designer carrying a portfolio to his room. And I'm like, what the heck is that? And he opened it up and I'm like, oh, I can draw. He goes, oh, no. It's not drawing. This is design. And I got to learn all about graphic design. And I was hooked, and I've been hooked ever since. And I graduated college back in '92. And I have a degree in graphic design, and then did my hard labor, did an internship with Margot Chase, which a lot of people don't know, but if you've ever heard of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Bram Stoker's Dracula, when I was there, she was doing Paula Abdul's second album. That was called Spellbound. She did Madonna's Like a Prayer. She'd done stuff for Prince and stuff. During college, I got to have David Carson did an internship, or not an internship, but he came in and taught us for 3 weeks. So my professor, who just graduated this year, he retired this year after 41 years of teaching, Jackson Bolts. He's mentioned in David Carson's first book, and David Carson took one graphic design class and it was from Jackson. And so he invited him over to come teach our class for 3 weeks. And one of the most amazing, immersive things I've ever been in my life, which is just crazy. But it's just, I've been in contact with these incredible graphic designers, either through A.I.G.E. or through Las Vegas. And at that time, Las Vegas really wasn't on the planet as far as we were just, we were experts at doing slot tournament invitations, and that was about it. And there was not really any design at that time. So, we formed A.I.G.E. to kind of elevate the game and do something different so we can put Vegas as a design mecca. And I'll be honest with you, I did not do that, but the creative people here did. And it's unbelievable the work that comes out of Vegas. I just love it. There's so many great people and great things. So just to be a part of it's just wonderful. The work that I did with Westwood Studios was a lot of fun. I named a restaurant Sealy at Ballet High that's still here, Mountain View Hospital. I did worked on their logo. Me and the group over at CDI Studios, I named 3 Square, and then Victoria Hart, myself, and Aaron and stuff, we worked on the branding for all the 3 Squares, so that's how people know us. So a little bit about myself other than that and the craziness. And
Yeah.
my insanity about Nightmare
I'm
Before
sure
Christmas.
I'm sure there's a lot more there, but
Oh, God, I could go on. I don't want to bore everyone to death.
well, it's good. It's good. So you have vast knowledge and a vast experience with design and going forward. And yeah, bringing AIGA was pretty cool. So what kind of brought that about, really? I mean, how did you do that? I mean, I like the fact that it's a fantastic organization, and it's a
Absolutely.
place where people can go to and learn and get inspired.
Uh-huh.
So how did that start?
Utter frustration. Really, to put it in 2 words, utter frustration. So the Ad Federation, and they are phenomenal right now. The Ad Federation at that time would have these huge marathons called their Addies, their award shows. And those Addies would basically, everyone gets drunk, and they would do awards, and it would last for hours. It would start at 6 and almost end at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. And it was, as a struggling graphic designer, it was wonderful to submit work in there, because to be acknowledged for what you've done is a great thing. However, the people that were judging those shows and the kind of creative people they were selecting were pitiful. There just wasn't of elite quality people, and it was sad. And that out of that frustration, we kind of talked to the people at that time, hey, can we change things? And they said no. And out of that frustration, I would sit and talk to my partner, Andrew, at that time, Andrew Hirschberger. And he says, well, we should bring a chapter here. And I'm going, a chapter? And he goes, yeah, AIGA. And I go, what's AGA? Like, I had no idea what AGA was. That's why I called it. And American Institute of Graphic Art, he shared it with me. And at that time, I knew about the Phoenix Society of Communication Arts, which was very similar, but not AIGA. And at that moment, we decided to use our resources for our company. At that time, our company was called Miley Ryan. and we launched A.I.G.E. And we basically looked at all the paperwork, and we'd use our staff, and we'd make phone calls to people. This was pre-internet type of stuff, pre-email, and just call people up and tell them about what A.I.G.E. is about, what we wanted to do. And within a year, we had 75 members, and we created an award show called the Peep Show. And it was actually held at what's now Hakkasan Group at the MGM Mirage, which is at that time Studio 54. And we started up with an open bar for an hour, and then an award show for 1 hour, and then the bar and the place was open. So we made it super content rich. The judges were top-notch graphic designers left and right. And that was the whole premise of it, is just to elevate the game. Now, the premise that came behind it all, the knowledge that we got from these other graphic designers like Sean Adams of Adams Marika, who now teaches at the Art Center, an incredible presenter too as well. He came in and mentored us. I mean, this is the guy that worked with Robert Redford for years on Sundance Film Festival. Okay, so his work is with Disney. His work is with all the every client you want to work with. Okay, so he would come in and share with us this amazing knowledge, and we would get this knowledge like how to run a business effectively, how to deal with clients that are irritable, how to deal with intellectual property, how to deal with better contracts. I mean, and they were just giving us this information. This is information that you just don't get. So the networking was insanely amazing, and the lessons from it was awesome. So it was such a win-win. It was such a win-win, and the city just grew over time. And years later, we changed the Peep Show to now the Work Show. And I will say that when Victor Rodriguez jumped on board and became the president of A.I.G.E., he changed it forever. He changed it in a great way. He made an incredible board of directors that were communicative, talkative, and sharing knowledge with one another that really set the precedent to where it is today. And it's just amazing. So I was a board advisor for, I was a membership director for many years. I was doing a lot of different elements for them, such as like what is art and stuff like that, different programming, and helping them with creating events. And then I was a board advisor for several years, and then took a step back, and now I'm just a board advisor as far as the students are at the CSN, creating a student group. So, but I will say this much. Talking with other creatives and sharing frustrations and knowledge is such an amazing thing. And especially when it's just open forum. It's not about you're going to steal my client away from you or all this stuff, or hey, how much do you charge for whatever? You know, that stuff is grand, but the information that we did share with each other helped our businesses and just helped us as designers.
Right. It gives everybody a chance to inspire each other, which is nice going forward. I love how the idea was inspired by a rejection.
Right. I love the rejection thing is amazing, because it's like, is that a real no? Or is that just, I got to find another yes? You know, where's this boulder in front of me? How do I climb over it, around it, or through it, or under it? You know, and just like, where do I let it stop me and hold back, or do I push through? And so the rejection is very much like that. You know, it can be a catalyst for something new. And that's something for every designer to face. It's like, how many times have you been told no by clients? You know, it's like, no, and then you just give up. It's like, well, have you been told no and try to figure out how to turn it back into a yes? You know, find out where the problematic is. And sometimes the no is going to be a no, and sometimes it can turn into a maybe. And if it's a maybe, then it turns into a yes. You know, I call it, it's like the worst relationship into the best relationship. You know, you're asking someone out on a date and she says no, or he says no, or whatever, and then all of a sudden you come back and they say yes. It is a process.
Well, it's also your responsibility. If a client, you can tell, you don't even have to tell no. You can tell if the no is coming just in the tone and the way that they're looking at you. If they're doing one of these, you know, watching working, you know, but it's your job to get them to loosen up. It's your job to tell them something they already know in a way that makes them think, wow, I really identify with you. You know, it's your job to be able to listen to them, ask them the right questions, surprise them, surprise yourself during a meeting. I always think that's the most interesting thing is, and I get excited when I go to these discovery meetings with clients, because it's a chance to really ask them questions that they aren't used to answering. And, you know, that's what they're looking for. I think that's when they sit in a room with one of us, right? A designer.
Yep.
We come in with an expectation. They have an expectation that we're going to be brilliant, right? They have an expectation that we're going to bring it. They're going to give them a Don Draper moment, right? That
they're like, do me.
You're not going to be worth it unless I'm weeping at the end of this meeting, you know, with
right.
You're going to tell me. Well, that holds a lot of responsibility, right? And I love the challenge. I love the idea that my job is to remind them of why they're worth my work, right? Remind them why I am inspired by you, because that the best work is going to come when I'm inspired by the subject. And if I'm not inspired when I first meet them, I better be searching for what inspires me. And a lot of that digging is what's the funnest part of the job.
That's the part. I love what you said. That's the digging. I was coined by another designer. They called me the awareness terrorist because of that. Because I kept digging like a terrorist. I literally would look into all the R&D and stuff.
On the awareness.
You stumbled right there. You said, and that's literally that digging is the awareness terrorist. It's like we have to find out. Like for me, the easy route is just saying yes and working with the client. That's the easy route. Mm-hmm. The challenging route, which I love, is I like to ruffle the feathers. I like to ruffle the feathers to the point where I will say you're wrong, and here's why.
Right.
And I try to do it in a non-bully, I'm smarter than you type of way. It's like literally, like I had a client that they flew us out to New Jersey to talk to them, and they wanted some help in marketing. They wanted some help in their social media and their identity. And they go, we got the greatest practice right now. We got the greatest staff right now. And literally in the 2 sentences he said that, I pulled up his Yelp reviews, his negative Yelp reviews, like hundreds of them. And as he was saying how great he was, I goes, yeah, but you don't show up to work. You yell at your employees in front of other people. And he's like, what? I go, well, you're telling me one story, but here's some other people are telling me another story. And like, where'd you get that? I go, it's on the internet. This is accessible to everybody. And right. They hate that. But what comes of that conversation, and it says, look, I understand why we're here. Let's start off with, we have a problem and let's solve it, because you know what, you nailed it. We may not have the answer. And sometimes we just need to talk, because through that communication and that back and forth, the answers might come up. And surprisingly enough, by me just listening more as they're talking, they already have the answer. They just didn't even hear it.
Right. They always
apply it. And you're like, dude, you just said this. I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. I'm like, you said that, Exactly. I'm just bringing it out, So it's that. I love that. I love that process. It's almost like we're in a sense like that shrink psychiatrist that's kind of listening to him and then, giving him the Freudian thing back on him.
Well, yeah, and I think that's I just love the fact, because you gave me a couple of things maybe to touch on to, and one of them was the awareness terrorist thing, and I actually threw that at the end because I was so curious about it. I didn't forget it, and we jumped. No, but it's okay, because I think it's hilarious that we fell into it that way. I do a thing. You just reminded me. I love that you shouldn't be afraid of bringing a little tension into a meeting, right? Because they're not paying you to pander to them. They're not paying you to be humble. They're paying you because you have ideas. They're paying you because you have vision, and so you should have it. You should show that you have it, and it should be legitimate, not BS. Which you do get sometimes from people. It has to be legitimate stuff. If you feel that, when it happens, they say a thing, and then you get that feeling like, ooh, that's it. And so the hook latches onto it, and then they keep talking, and it's like zzz, the line's going on, and then you got to reel it back. And then, but I what I like doing is, I love it when clients. I've done this a couple of times where a client won't give me anything. They expect you to just give them genius, but they don't give you anything to build it from. And so what I love to do is, in those situations, what seems to work with me is I just make total blatant assumptions about them. And I just throw them out there.
You start digging. You're like a reporter. You just want to see if they react.
Yeah, well, clearly you're wearing a blue shirt, so blue's your favorite color. So maybe if we start looking at blue and just something silly like that. And then they get annoyed because they feel like they have to defend themselves. And then they start giving me things that I can use.
Right.
So I come off a little bit like a jerk, but it got them to give me what I wanted. And then during that process, towards the end, I explained what the intent was, and they like the fact that they think it's funny that, oh, well, you got me to talk. Yeah, I was waiting for you to give me something, and you got it out of me. I wasn't going to give you anything, but you pissed me off when you said the thing.
Right.
And, so creating that kind of tension sometimes creates an interesting thing. It is funny. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I love what you just said there, because it's ironic from the opposite point of view, from the CEO and the corporate owner's point of view. And their point of view is they don't want to look stupid that they have a problem and it needs to be fixed
Right. Yeah.
because they're running a company, they're making money, but all of a sudden they just don't want to look like an idiot. And I get that too. And and you remind me of the time where I was up with Billy Walters, who owns a lot of golf courses here in town. And so he hired us to help him with a whole bunch of marketing and stuff. He was going to open up a new restaurant at Valley High, and he fired his chef the night before we're doing a big presentation. He's like, I'm going to bring in someone new or whatever. But he goes, but I need a name and I need a logo. And we're like, well, who are you bringing in? And he goes, well, we're going to bring in Wolfgang Puck. And we're like, and I'm like, what? like I'm gonna talk to Wolfgang Puck. I'm like, what? Okay, first of all, I'm working with Bill's amazing, but
It's funny that you said
now
I'm bringing in a chef.
I'm bringing in a chef. Yeah, I'm like, oh God, okay. So Bill's like, he's a controller and he's done a lot of incredible things in his life, and he would look at us and go, all right, what's the name of the restaurant? And we'd show him the name, and so Valley High is a series of islands, and they worship goddesses and stuff. And there was a goddess on one island named S.A.V.A.G.E, which is a goddess of fertility and abundance. And I thought it was an interesting name for a restaurant because, like, at the end of the day, you want to relax, have a drink, have a nice food, talk about the great day you had, and you feel great because you had the day off. You didn't have to work. You can play, so you feel abundantly that way. And or the other point of view is like, okay, now I can have a celebration and go get lucky and go have a party and have fun. Whatever you want to look at. Bill looks at the name and he goes, why on earth would I name my restaurant Silly? He mispronounced it, S-I-L-L-Y. And in a million years, I didn't even look at the name that way. I just knew it was Silly because he wanted to name it originally Lotus. And we had a short time to come up with a new name. So we came up with Silly. And I'm like, no, Bill, it's pronounced Sealy and it's from Valley High. He goes, I hate it. I don't like it. Come up with a new name, come up with a new logo, and you have tomorrow to pitch it to Wolfgang Puck. And I was like, oh God. So I just went over to Mandalay Bay to go have a drink, and I walked by Wolfgang Puck's new restaurant, and it was called Lupo. And I'm like, wow, what's that? I didn't know. So I asked the maitre d', and I said, what does Lupo mean? And she goes, oh, it means wolf. And I'm like, thank you. That's all I needed. Yeah. I'm like, it's a short name. I didn't know what it is. I couldn't even pronounce it correctly. I'm going to stick with Sealy. So here I am going up against a billionaire and what he is. And here I am, some punk kid from college, if you will. And I go back and I'm going to present in front of Wolfgang Puck. And the next day I come back and Bill says, Wolfgang's going to make the final decision. I'm like, that's fine with me. So as presentation goes, I just show him the one name. And Bill's looking at me like, I'm going to kill you, you punk kid. And I'm just like, I really am, I'm holding my guns here. And it was one of the biggest gambles I ever took in my life. I could have been fired and everything, but Wolfgang goes, oh, I love it. Sealy, this is a great name. Fertility and abundance, in this cool little voice, whatever. And he goes, I love it. It's great. And he goes, I just named my restaurant Lupo. It's great. And Bill looks at him and looks at me and I'm like, and Bill's like, you want it. You got it. A year later, I come back to the restaurant to have some dinner or whatever. And I talk to Bill and Bill goes, you're right. And I'm like, what? He goes, everyone that comes to the restaurant talks about where the name comes from. It's the perfect icebreaker for all the waiters and stuff. And they love it. Right. And you know what? I was wrong and you were right. And I go, no, don't say that. That's not you were just stuck on Lotus, and Lotus was a beautiful name, but there's like 10,000 other Lotus things. Mm-hmm. Thank you for the opportunity to do this. And the funny thing is, thank God for Wolfgang Puck because he helped open Sealy, and then he opened for the first year. So, again, it's that trial and error, sometimes taking that risk, knowing that everything's on the table, that you can lose everything too. Sometimes you got to stand guard.
Well, that's the thing too, when you're naming a place, especially like a thing like a restaurant or like that, if it has a story attached to the name, whether it's a connection with the owner or maybe it's it's like the Rosebud thing, what is that? If it has some kind of a connection that it's a reveal, it really adds to the brand like a huge amount. And then you carry around the secret that it's like the arrow in the FedEx logo, it's right thing that that you can share with other people. That's fantastic to have that for a brand. That's like the best way to do it. Some people think it's just a name, it's just a name that you put out there, or it's just a logo. No, but if it tells a story, if it has something in it that's not clear or obvious, or it's curious, but it's not clear or obvious. And that doesn't happen unless you have guts and you ask the right questions and you have a client who, like the one you had, who sounds like a reasonable person, although they went with their gut.
They were amazing and reasonable. They were tough on that one, but I mean,
Right.
they also did the research too. For his wife, did the interior designing of Seeley. They did all the work on Ballet High, where I had to borrow the books from Ballet High, and I found it in the books of their research. I found that name Seeley right there, and it's like I wish I invented it. Gosh, I didn't, but it was already pre-made from the islands. But I just love that they adapted to it, and I'm still glad they're still open. I'm still glad they still have good food. I'm still glad they're here, and it's fun. It's fun going back there now and watching a lot of my friends get married there because it's such a beautiful place. But that process though is it's scary too. It could have gone completely the opposite. It could have gone where I could have been fired and Wolfgang could have hated it and all that stuff too. But I love the process of when you're as a designer and you find something, you'll feel it either in your goosebumps, your soul, you'll tingle, whatever. You'll just know it's just the right thing.
But this is important for new designers who are maybe listening right now. That doesn't come right off the bat.
No,
You're talking about takes a while to develop, and I think to me it's like musicianship. You know, it's like a musician. You can take a sheet of music. A sheet of music is data, is information. It's all timed out. It's notes. It's all the same. But you can hand that sheet of music to a first year musician who understands how to read music, and they play it, and it sounds great, and they do a great job. But then you take that same sheet of music and you hand it to someone who's been playing the cello for 40 years. And then they play the same thing, the same time, and the same notes, but there's something in there. There's some nuance that's powerful. And they're no longer playing an instrument. They're speaking the notes. They're feeling it out, you know.
They're bringing it alive.
Right. It's not about the technical anymore. It's about just the life of the work. And I think people like you, people who have been doing design work for so long, there's this intuition and there's nuance in the work that we sometimes, when we're doing it, we're not aware we're doing it. We're almost taking it for granted. But we have this faith in our ability to we don't need all the information off the front. We just know that we're going to get there and it's going to work. And we're willing to take the risk. That's the biggest part, is we have the courage to try to take the risk. So, one thing I was going to ask you is,
let's go back. Actually, can I intervene?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I want to interject here.
Yeah.
Let's go back a little bit. So as a young designer, that's fear.
Right.
Because if I graduated in 92, by the time I had my first company at 96, by the time I had my second company was 99, 2000, and I'm naming Seeley at 2000. I'm still a young muck with my feet muddy in the water. And I'm not that I'm brass or bold or had a lot of courage, but I was willing to take steps in my fear because I had nothing else to lose. And the fear is what driven me, because I was really trying to push something newer and authentically what I've been seeing in How and print and communication arts and all these other design books. And it's the stuff I always wanted to do, is just the better work. That was more important to me than the client, is to do better work. And now that's horrible to say, because it's like you want to put the client first, but I really wanted to elevate the game in that sense. And sometimes if I look back, I wasn't that seasoned back then. I've never named a restaurant ever before then. And I've named several after that, but never before that. I never worked with Wolfgang Puck, and I never worked with a billionaire developer golf course guy, ever. So there's a lot of first there, first. And the only reason why is because of an opportunity. And here's funny, you know, Tammy Belt. Tammy Belt's the reason why I worked with Walters Golf. She opened a door for us, and it was amazing. And so with that said, you may not feel it, but the fear is there for a reason. Is that if it does scare you a little bit, go for it. Make sure you cover your bases too, but go for it. Because, you know, again, there's something in it. Yeah, you could get rejected, but you could get accepted. And the reward of getting accepted from dealing with that fear, you just get a little bit more courage for the next time, and you get more courage for the next time. And, you know, I love that aspect.
Well, I think that there is also this side of it, because, you know, I talk to a lot of fine artists and commercial artists, and I believe that there is definitely crossover between the two. And I think that sometimes the graphic design and designers don't get the credit of being as thoughtful artists as the fine artists, which is total bullshit. Because
right.
Because the truth is, all we are doing is we're communicating. And I think that although you were young in the field, in the industry, I think that you probably carried with you the heart and soul of an artist, probably from when you were young, and you've held
Right.
on to that childish wonder that you have to be an artist. You know, you have to have that way of looking at the world through the younger eyes, you know, to be able to see more, you know. You know, the older tired eyes don't see as much. And I think that's something that some of us have, and the better of us that are better at this industry are the ones that are always reaching back to that way of looking at things. And so I think that's a, I always use and I don't know, I know you, the problem with doing this, and so being somebody who doesn't just give a question and wait for the answer, who does interject sometimes, is
Sure.
sometimes I repeat myself, and I hope I don't bug you too much, but there are people
No.
that might be watching this. But I love the idea of Michelangelo, you know, and the artwork that he did, and his being commissioned by the church to do a lot of his work, because the people in that era couldn't read. And so he was hired by the church to communicate stories in the Bible with his artwork. He was a commercial artist. He was being hired to communicate an idea to a public that the church was trying to do. Yet he is seen as the ultimate in fine art, and in many ways, as old as his work is. And I think that's it. I think that everybody's trying to say something. We all want to say something. Some of us have the ability or the will to actually do it, and it doesn't
Yeah.
matter whether it's commercial or not. You carry that with you, you know. And I
And a
think,
caveat to that is have the courage to say it.
right,
Have the permission to give yourself to say it anyways, whether you feel you should say it or not. Like sometimes I don't want to interrupt you because I love what you're saying. I think you're hitting it
sometimes.
so poignantly, right? And I don't want to be disruptive that way. But if you have a voice and inside, let it speak out. Say it, you know,
Sharing is
and
important.
speak. Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. With that said, Michelangelo is perfect.
yeah,
I love that analogy.
yeah. So sharing. So that's something that's something everybody does now through the internet, with Facebook and social media. Everybody loves to share, but it seems like they love to share other people's work.
True.
It's like, okay, you got inspired enough to where you shared this thing, but what are you doing with that inspiration? I always ask myself that question. Like, you know, I get it. I share quotes and things, you know, sometimes that are just because they're in my head, or I read something, I'm reading a book and I go, oh, that's something. And I take a picture of what I read because it moves me. But I'm actually taking that and putting it into my book, or putting it into a painting, or putting it into something that I'm doing on the side, or throwing it on the Jack, you know, who's outside right now trying, you know, getting built. But what do you think about that, kind of where we're at? Because there's so much, we're so data heavy now. What?
I don't mind the sharing, because to me it's a revolutionary way of getting the squire to be the knight. It's you're immersed into it. You're putting your years of becoming the chef as the understudy, and you're learning from the masters. There's nothing wrong with it. I think by sharing is different than actually doing.
Mm-hmm.
Sharing is one thing, but actually physically doing it, like, okay, you know what? Okay, you love Keith Haring. Great. Can you draw Keith Haring? Can you draw in his style? Can you emulate his style? And then if you were to take it 3 steps further, how would you change it? How would you improvise in it? Because there's this great scene in Finding Forrester with Sean Connery. I love that movie. I just absolutely, there's a scene where there's this young kid writer, and he's sitting in front of a typewriter and he doesn't know what to write. And Sean Connery puts a note, something he wrote, in front of him. And he just walks away, and you don't hear anything. And then you hear Sean Connery in this, you know, James Bond voice goes, "Punch the keys, damn it!" You know, just really loud. You're like, what? He just wants him to start typing. And the whole thing is kinetically, once he starts typing, as the words start flowing through him as he's copying someone else's, then his own words will come into play.
Oh, yeah.
And so by me doing like what you're doing, when I emulate Tim Burton and build my own Jack skeleton, I'm getting away from the computer, and I'm being creative again with my hands, and I'm being kinetically, and I'm learning from what Tim did, is just use what he had, or Henry Selznick, you know, the director and stuff, and how they worked with clay and stuff. I'm like, I don't have the practice with this. So by doing it, I can learn through that process. And in a moment, have fun with it. Where's the improvise? Where's the jazz? Where are you doing your own little thing to it, getting your little note? And then all of a sudden, you're starting to get a voice. All of a sudden, you're starting to get things that no one's seen before. And also, it's the spark. So this data savviness that we have right now is brilliant. But to me, it's exactly what libraries were way back when.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Or what Barnes and Noble and all these bookstores were for me. I could go in there for hours and just look at all these books, but now I can do it in a heartbeat on Pinterest. And now I can just get even more data. The problem with it is it's because it's so much, is that it's taking me away from doing something with it. I can retrieve so much information. The R&D is no problem now. The problem is, where's the sketches? The problem is the second step after the R&D is, okay, now now that you've seen all this stuff, what are you going to do with it?
Right. Yeah.
And that doing and that's where the kinetic learning has to go. And that's where the artist really has to do. Like, I'll look at like Jackson Pollock stuff. And when I studied Jackson's work, I didn't like it. I'm like, oh God, it's splatter. Come on, we can do this. When you go to France, or when I was in Paris and I went to the Centre de Pompidou and I saw an actual Jackson, like not flat on a book, like on the wall, the layers of the ink on it, it blew my mind how fabric it was, how many layers it was, the madness of it. And I got a whole different appreciation of what a flat book gave it me because of the actual tactile thing. Then when I saw that movie on Jackson Pollock, that one famous actor did, he did a brilliant job, but he showed the movement of during the jazz music. That to me is where designers can thrive, is by doing something, by physically. We're here, you know what, you have a challenge, we're here to take on that challenge. We're not going to talk about, we're going to do something about it, and you're either going to approve it or not approve it, or you're going to apply it or not apply it. But at least something's been done about, or being done about. So in this world of all this technical information, I love it. Great. The question is, now with it, what are you going to do with it?
So that right there is the rewind moment for me, what you just said.
Okay.
This is where I see the awareness terrorist you're talking about. I see it right there in what you just said, because you're so right. We tend to assume that we have a grasp of things, right, from reading it or from seeing it in books. But when you're physically in front of a thing, it's so different. And it's just like the talk about, does a tree make a sound if there's nobody around to hear it? Art is dead unless there's a person in front of it looking at it. It's just, that's when it comes to life, because there's nothing there. There's nothing there until someone is actually observing it. It reminds me of going to the Ground Zero in New York City. This was years after 9/11. And I'm walking amongst the display that they had there. They put out there, it's all underground and everything. And you feel odd because you're walking amongst the like a case, and there's a wallet and a shoe in it, and there's just the remnants of things they had found. And I feel strange. I feel just strange walking there. And then I see the fire engine. I don't know if you've been there.
I haven't. Wow.
I go around the corner and they show the front of the fire engine, and it's beautiful, pristine. And then the second half of it is just torn, like it was chewed on by a dinosaur or something, and it's burned and destroyed. But the front was beautiful. And I looked at it and it hit me so hard. I literally stopped in my tracks. I'm with my daughter and I started to cry. And because seeing it in front of you, I saw everything here. I know what happened, and I was going through it stone-faced. The view of that fire engine hit me. No idea why. I could have seen a picture of it, and it wouldn't have done anything. But being there, being near it, and just understanding that I am. It's like on a painting. When you're standing in front of a Jackson Pollock, you're standing where Jackson Pollock stood, looking at that painting. And you start seeing it through there's this strange connection things. And there's something important about those connections, and people taking the time to get away from your computer and go outside, This one last thing. I know I'm talking too much.
No, you're not. I love it.
But,
I love
but
it.
for me, the idea of looking at a blank piece of paper or a blank canvas or getting ready to write on a white screen and contemplating and suffering because you don't know how you're going to start something is, again, bullshit. Because you don't have to be writing what you're going to have. You don't have to start with a finished product. You can literally start writing about the stapler on your desk, and your mind eventually will elaborate and turn it into whatever it needs to become. Whenever you paint, I mean, I remember starting paintings when I was a kid, and I would just start. It just, whatever colors I had, I would start just doing something. Eventually, it looked nothing like that. There was layers of paint, and then eventually I had something that I loved. It doesn't matter. We have this ability to get to where we need to go. You just need to start. So Sean Connery's right. Just shut up and work. Just stop worrying about it. Just go out and get going, because it's okay. You're not alone.
Yeah.
Everybody sits there and they look off in the distance waiting for something to come to them, and it's not out there.
It's not going to hit you.
It's not. There's nothing out there. You have an entire lifetime of data you've gathered already. It's inside of you that needs to come out.
Right.
Anyway, that's important, I think, for young designers, because you're on a freaking deadline, guys. You're on a deadline, and you don't have time to sit there and wait for lightning to hit. You have to figure this out. You have to move. You don't have time to do this like, oh, I'm waiting for inspiration. God, I get so tired of that.
Me too. For me, I get frustrated with the perfection,
right?
Where people are like, I put so much thought and effort into this that it needs to be perfect. And I always share with every designer or artisan I ever meet, I go, where do you find perfection in nature?
Right.
It's a false illusion that doesn't exist, that is basically a good example of why we're lazy, is because we're hiding behind the garb and the wall of what this perfection is supposed to be. Look, I understand you want to refine something and make it better. Got that. But perfection does not exist, because if you're the creator, we won't know when you start or when you finish. Yeah. And even if you're still revising, it's still a process. So everything is still a process. So with that said, is that just get moving, do something with it, and see what turns out. And, you know, we're very fortunate being here, like being in Las Vegas. When you were talking about Michelangelo, you know, to go down to Caesar's Palace to Appian Way and see a full-size Michelangelo's David statue cut from the same quarry to the same specifications, which is so amazing. You get the feeling of it rather than a stupid book. Or going to any gallery, I don't care what it is, even Friday or any type of gallery setting, and just see what other artisans are doing. It starts, I don't know, to me, it's like igniting the lava in my volcano, and it's letting me ready to erupt so I can do something with this and I can have fun. Like, for instance, I just shared with earlier, my shirt. I had no idea who designed this pattern that was the wallpaper of the Haunted Mansion. But there's a local guy here in town, Brendan Powers, cool ass guy. He owns Golden Tiki. He's a huge Disney freak like me. And I reached out to him because I wondered if he knew the name of this. He goes, "Oh, you got to check out Raleigh." I'm like, "Raleigh?" And I checked out another friend of mine who's an illustrator for Disney. And they told me about the guy's name who created the Haunted Mansion for Disney. And I never even knew this guy's name. And then it turned out that everyone was telling me it was this guy who invented this pattern that was the wallpaper of Haunted Mansion. And it turned out to not be him. He sketched the chandelier, and it turned out to be a graphic designer named Tanya, who had to come up with a wallpaper pattern that got inspired by Raleigh's sketches, and she did it. So here we are. I'm like, see, that's the angst of our design thing, is that it's usually the graphic designers are never known who actually did it. But the cool part of that process is that it becomes something that we all remember. And I think that's something I always share with people, for even myself, is that when I'm doing something or you're designing something, imagine who's going to stand in front of your gallery or your work or read your book or listen to this, and how anything you can share with them might spark something in them so they can do something with it.
Right.
And let me tell you, if you can make someone move from not doing anything into an action, that to me is absolute brilliance. I love that. That shows a kinetic energy here that allows people to be creative. And I think from looking at the clouds and seeing animal shapes and stuff, to looking at rocks and seeing funky patterns, or having weird dreams and write them down, you know, like I know H.R. Geiger probably didn't sleep much, but his alien stuff freaks me out all the time. But, you know, these things, I'm always inspired by these incredible people, because as they inspire me, I get to then experiment, and then I can inspire other people too. And that's what knowledge is all about. It's not supposed to be hoarded. It's supposed to be shared. And then through that kinetic thing, people can learn from it. Like when you just told me about 9/11 and New York, I've never been to New York. I've been to so many different cities in the world, but I've never been to New York. And one thing I do remember is when I went to Washington, D.C., and I went to the Holocaust Museum.
Mm.
I knew all about the Holocaust. I knew all about what happened. And I'm not a denier person. I know it happened. Walking in that museum across the plank of a room that was filled with empty shoes, I fell to my knees in tears
Mm. Mm.
because I felt the deaths. I
Mm.
felt that this is women, children, and people who have died for just being themselves and just being who they are. And it hit me so hard. I walked out of that place and I felt so heavy and so, I thought I was gonna feel alive. I didn't. I felt depressed, but I'm glad I went through it because it made me appreciate every breath I was taking and every step I was taking after. I was like, I hope whatever I do, I'm not a part of anything that's going to do this to anyone. And that really hit me hard. Whether being a father or a teacher is like to inspire someone rather than to destroy them.
Right.
That's a big thing for us, is that we have to think about that. That's why we share this knowledge. It's just like we're here to build each other up. I'm no better than you. You're no better than me. It's just we're all people just working this out.
Yeah. I
So
like that.
thank you for
I like that a
that.
lot. I think that's great. It's funny because, yeah, to be somebody who's, I mean, it's everybody's creative, I think, in some way, shape, or form. But the people who actually are reaching for something better have to have empathy, have to have the courage to feel those feelings, to go into places like the museum that you just spoke about, knowing I'm not going to leave this place feeling great. I know I'm going to see things, but you have to make yourself feel things. I think it's important because you're in a position where you have to connect with humanity, and humanity, through your work, and humanity feels a lot of stuff. And whether it's relevant or not, you need to be connected in some way with it. And I think that's something important about artists, no matter who you are. I don't care what kind of artist you are. If you're afraid to feel things, you're not gonna reach your potential. You're just not going to at all. You're from what because like I said, we mostly connect through social media and Facebook, and it's pretty clear to me that you're a great dad. It's pretty clear to me that that's important for you, is being a good dad and everything, and the importance of that. One of the things I try to do with this is connect with young people and get them a chance to see and meet people that are working, active, creative people, and get inspired by them. I mean, you've talked to a lot of young people. Can you share some bit of wisdom with them, of things that maybe that they can expect?
Oh, I got a lot.
I like to kind of end with this. I like to end with this kind of a thing. So that I'm
Oh,
throwing that
sure. Don't stop doodling. Always doodle. I don't care. And I don't care if you're doodling on someone else's paper or whatever, and you're ruining it for them, they get mad. Everything can be transformed into something beautiful. And practice makes, practice is enjoyable because it evolves and it changes all the time. So, for instance, like if you're painting on a canvas and you don't like it and you're going to throw away the canvas, my suggestion is take the canvas back, paint on top of it and add a layer to it, paint over it and do something else with it, and just keep practicing with that. The doodling thing is big because it helps learn. Like my children right now they're amazing. I have a light table here in my home office, and we have books, but they grab my iPad and they put a piece of paper on the iPad and they trace things on my iPad. And
That's not a bad idea. That's pretty
oh
good.
God, you're gonna crack the screen. I'm freaking out, but they do it really lightly, and at first I'm like, oh, I'm freaking out. But I at first I was like, wow, I wonder what they're doing. And then they just start drawing their own little thing. And I'm just like, I wish I did that when I was younger. I would always just get a coloring book and try to fill in the damn lines. But they're really experimenting with it. And I love it. And they always ask me, what do I think? And I go, anything you do, I'm sorry, I'm going to like, but if you want me to be critical, I will. And if I'm going to be critical, you just have to be open enough to either accept or not, and don't worry about it. So if someone says that's crap, one thing I've realized is when one person hates it, 10 other people will love it. Yeah. So realize that a form of rejection is just the audience that is not willing to buy your piece. So the good thing is that there's going to be 10 other people that will absolutely love it. So all you have to do is go find those other people.
Right.
And explore different ways. And sometimes it's not drawing or painting. Sometimes it's music or dance or playing with clay, or like, for me, I've never built anything in 3 dimensions before. So I went out and I Googled Jack Skeleton, and I Googled how people would put them together, and I really didn't find anything I liked. So I'm like, I got to try figures out myself. And I'm like, I had to get sprinkler valve piping. I used toilet rolls. I used duct tape and wire. And I put a fully articulated Jack Skeleton together, and people look at me going, where'd you learn this? I go, I didn't learn, I just did. So with children, and here, it's not even children, with young adults or people, just have fun with it. Like my daughter right here, Priscilla, she will tell you, I'm crazy with all the decorations and stuff. Here, say hi. Say hi.
Hi, Priscilla.
Hi. Say hi.
Nice to see you.
So would you say I'm crazy with all this decoration stuff?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
She's sure that you're crazy. Yes.
Absolutely. I go,
yes, Dad, you're crazy.
But is it fun too, or no? Not fun. No, not fun. No,
Yeah.
no, not fun at all.
Here.
Yeah.
Show him the cold ice.
I'll show him. She wants me to show you the dry ice. We were playing with dry ice the other day.
Oh.
And stuff. So I posted on Facebook, and then all the smoke and stuff. And then we took flashlights, and it made it look like a bog, and having fun. It's just being
fantastic.
Or ask if she can come over here.
Yeah, you can go over to your friend's house. Go right ahead. Have fun.
Or she can come over here.
She can come over here too. There you go. So right, with children, it's just, she did this the other day. She wanted to create a lemonade stand. I'm like, let's not do that right now.
Yeah, right.
However, she got creative. She put out a table. She went out there and she started doing free drawings for everyone.
Oh, wow. That's a good idea.
She got bored with it in the first 5 minutes, but enrolled all the other kids in here to sit at the table and make drawings.
That's fantastic.
I'm like, you're an entrepreneur. You're running your own business now. Just make your cut, and you got Slurpees later on. It's done deal.
Isn't that great, kids?
I love it. I love their mindsets. They're so playful, and I think that's what you said something earlier that I kind of wanted to not challenge, but as we get older, we see things with older eyes. As I get older, I start to remember what it's like to look at things with younger eyes. And then I start to tell myself it's okay to play again.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's what artists do.
Just be a kid again. It's okay. And be okay with, you don't see a kid who's just learning how to walk to go, screw it, I ain't going to walk today, I'm done. No, they keep getting up and keep going. And I think that, and with art, I think it's the same thing. It's like, it's okay if you make mistakes. It's okay if no one buys it. It's okay if no one's going to like it on social media. It's okay if you think you're a complete failure. Somewhere 10 other people want it.
Right.
That's perfect timing. I didn't say that. I was like, what?
Perfect timing. Hey, it's a pleasure. It was a pleasure chatting with you, my friend. You are electric. All right. You are a very, very interesting man, and I really appreciate you sharing some of your wisdom with the people that are going to be watching this and everything. So that was a treat. Thank you so much.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. I wish it was my wisdom, but like I said before, knowledge was just passed down to me, and I just read a lot of books and hang around a lot of cool people like you, and you get to share cool things, and it's just
take a compliment.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Anytime. Thank you.